Sylosis find themselves in quite an interesting position at this stage of their career. They're not really newcomers to the scene, but not really seasoned veterans either. The New Flesh is the seventh studio album by Sylosis, released by Nuclear Blast Records. They've always been a bit of a mixed bag from a stylistic point of view. I mean, at the start of their career, they were more of a thrash metal band, especially with Conclusions of an Age, which represents a really exciting progressive thrash metal take. But over the years, they've definitely incorporated more metalcore influence. And that's likely due to frontman Josh Middleton and his involvement with Architects. The New Flesh marks a shift in songwriting philosophy, as frontman Josh Middleton explains that they want to write things that's going to be fun for us to play and what's going to land better. He also explained how they just want to relive the teenage years, or they wanted to relive the teenage years when they're writing the New Flesh. All of them together in a room, jamming, living in the moment. It's writing songs that feel good and what's good for them. And I kind of respect that really. They're writing music for themselves on the New Flesh and not necessarily what's good for the masses or what's going to get mainstream approval. So I do wonder how that was going to manifest on the New Flesh. It feels like they're going back to their early thrash metal roots on this album, especially with arguably the leading song on the album, Spurs from the Guillotine. I mean, it's just a good old fashioned thrash song at times, with those really fast minimalistic roots and just tensely layered. Oh, it's fantastic. And it got those pinch harmonics that are so fantastic on Conclusion of an Age. So it's exciting to listen to that again and to relive that sort of memory for myself of discovering that album when I was 16. So yeah, it's a bit of a fanboy moment, but it was pretty cool. There's also songs like All Glory, No Valor, especially in the early stage of the song that definitely takes that Route 1 thrash metal approach. As for the metalcore influence, you definitely get that on Circle of Swords, which is absolutely bruising at times, and some of those breakdowns are absolutely nasty, and I'm pretty sure they'll cause a few circle pits and there's some absolute chaos in the live arena. And there's some examples of hardcore across the whole album, really, sort of in the vein of Hatebreed, and that's achieved really through the vocals. That sort of call and response, that more primitive vocal style, like more primitive angsty vocal style, a bit like Jamie Jester did, again for Hatebreed. There's also some songs with more of a melodic metalcore feel to it, like Lacerations, where they use a synths that add more of an epic and orchestral undertone to the song, a bit like what you'd expect in Architects. And again, that's probably a byproduct of Josh Middleton and his time with the band. So yeah, it's a slower song as well, more symphonic, more melodic, and it definitely helps with the overall pacing of the album. It gives you a bit of a breather and a rest between this thrash metal chaos. It's interesting reading about Middleton and his admiration for Slipknot's People Equal, as in his words, it's super heavy, but it's an anthem. As such, on the New Flesh, you can definitely expect songs that, quite forceful ballads, but also got catchy choruses. And I think the song, The New Flesh, the title track, definitely delivers that, as well as All Glory, No Valor. So yeah, it's looking pretty good so far, The New Flesh. We've got these huge choruses and some really gnarly thrash metal or metalcore riffs, and yeah, it's looking like a really good package. To be honest, it took me like maybe the second or third listen to really appreciate it, but so far I think it's the most sophisticated release yet. I still love Conclusions of an Age. I think it's their best album, but I can't help not respect the New Flesh. Now, time for a bit of a curveball. I've noticed a bit of a trend in the world of metal over the last 6 months or so. Bands like Orbit Culture, Conjure, they're both devastatingly heavy bands, but on their albums that both came out in the back end of 2025, they both had songs that were, acoustic ballads really, a lot slower, a lot more emotional, and featuring cleaner singing. Everywhere at Once is another song by Sylosis, which is a lot more stripped back. It features acoustic ballads, cleaner singing, but it's definitely not one that's catching on to trends, I don't think, because it's quite a personal song really. It, the lyrics come across as Josh Middleton talking about his feelings of guilt for abandoning his children or not being able to see his children whilst he's on tour with Sylosis. and it's quite emotional at times. It's definitely a more touching song, and the shows they're a lot more versatile than people give them credit for. I mean, earlier in their career, they released songs like Silence from the Skies Above, which is just an acoustic instrumental song, and it's very underrated. I loved it when I was a teenager, and if you're not listening to it, I definitely recommend checking it out. Now, maybe I'm looking at this from rose tinted glasses because Conclusions of an Age is one of my favourite albums of all time, and I still think it's far and away Silosis' best work. And for me, everything else is going to live within its shadow. But, looking at it more from an objective point of view, I can see this being, honestly, I can see The New Flesh being one of the albums of 2026. It showcases everything that's brilliant about Sylosis. It shows evolution, shows that they've learned from the near 20-year career. They've learned everything and put that into practice, all those lessons. Now, this is quite a hot take, but I really can see the new Flesh hitting pretty hard, and people are going to start viewing Sylosis as genuine British metal legends.